You're listening to the If Anything, I'm Everything podcast with your host, Kisha Chanelle. Empowering women and men from all walks of life to embrace who they are through acceptance and accountability. Enter this safe space as she talks about real topics and the emotional implications we have unconsciously developed based on society's stigmas. Thanks for joining the conversation.
So welcome back to part 2 of The Elephant in the Room. We continue our conversation with Christina sharing her experience with treatment for her PPD. Share with us anything you do in addition to the medication, and then how long was this process, or is it something that's an ongoing process? Enlighten us on that.
I would definitely say that this has been an ongoing process. When I went to my OBGYN for my checkup, she asked me how I was doing, and I told her I was doing really well. She asked how I was doing on the medication. I told her really well, and I told her, I said, I'm still breastfeeding because at the time I was. Mm-hmm. I said, and I don't want to get off. I really don't I'm afraid if I get off, I may not know how to function. I said, would you please keep me on it? And she said, absolutely. So she said, I will write the prescription for another year. Mm-hmm. And then after that year, we will revisit. And then we'll see, where you're at from there. What worked for me, of course, was medication. The medication was definitely key in my experience. But I would definitely say, in addition to that, I have gone to therapy. I don't go regularly like I should, because I think, once again, it's important to, always speak with an outsider and express how you're feeling. But I do, go to therapy, and that has also helped for me.
After getting your diagnosis and telling your husband, do you feel like at that point you got the support that you needed?
At first, I would say that I do not feel like the support was there. And the reason I say that is because I was dealing with all these emotions and these experiences on my own. But I would say that once I did tell my spouse, he did, he was very supportive of my feelings. He did assure me that, everything was going to be well. He checked in with me. He would even buy me flowers from time to time. He would buy me cards, and he would just let me know how great I was and how great of a mother I was transitioning into, with our daughter. So, by him, just doing those small things that don't have to be very big, I did feel more comfortable, speaking to him and informing him of everything that, I was, going through at that time that no one else knew besides my doctor, of course, but no one else knew. My family didn't know what was going on. My mom, my dad, nobody knew. Even when I told my oldest son today about, what I was going to do, he had no idea. He had no idea. He was like, wow, really? I told him, I was like, yes, I think, once again, a lot of times we try to hold it together and just, be that face of the family that really, we are suffering our own challenges inside that nobody knows, because, a lot of times we're forced to just have it all together. A lot of times it doesn't look like that behind the scenes and in the household. Of course, families go through their own experiences and their own challenges and issues. And behind the scenes of having the baby, there are some mothers that, of course, have symptoms of postpartum depression and handle, of course, having a baby very well. But then you have others that, of course, they are suffering in silence. And so those are the ones that, of course, you want to help out, but also speak on the issues that happen when having, this baby, of course our body changes, our weight fluctuates. You're either going to breastfeed or you're going to bottle feed, just, trying to get back into the routine of things and trying to get back to work. So it's just, it's a lot. It can be overwhelming. It's a life-changing event that can change a lot of things, but also put a lot of things into perspective, for the better.
With your baby being born, like during COVID, do you feel like that maybe had a little bit to do with developing PPD? Like, I asked that only because COVID was really, really rough, right? And I say that because, like, I was literally on spring break with my kids. We were in Florida. I actually had just dropped my son off to his dad in Atlanta. Me and my daughter ended up driving down to Florida. And that's when everything broke loose, right? Like, it was just crazy chaos, everything on the news. So I'm like, okay, we got to get back. We're not flying home. I'm driving home. We ended up driving from Atlanta all the way to Texas. It was kind of like everything shut down at that moment, right? I remember going to work that next week. I think it was around like the 12th of March. I ended up going to work that next week, and I remember sitting in like the clubhouse at the Barons. We were sitting in that back clubhouse, and everything was kind of unfolding, and it was like, is this real or is this not real, right? But at that moment, I don't think we really understood what was to come and everything that was to come along with a shutdown, the isolation, the fear of this deadly disease. Like, there was just so much that was going on. Like, I've always kind of been okay with being by myself. So it didn't really affect me in that manner. My daughter did really well with it. She actually excelled and was the type of child that was like, I got to get this assignment done. Look at my grades. Like, she's very, self-motivated and took care of what she needed to do. My son, however, the butterfly, like the social butterfly, I think it was a bit difficult for him. For some people, it was devastating.
Mhm.
It became very quiet for them in a world that was very robust and very loud and very lively. So do you feel like COVID had anything to do with, developing PPD?
I do. I do. So I had my baby in April of 2020. And around that time, that is when, of course, the world had just, shut down. At that time, of course, my doctor recommended social distancing, especially with the new baby, because she was developing her immune system.
Mhm.
So she really recommended for no visitors. And if we did, or if we did have visitors, they would have to be, of course, have a mask and social distance. I really did not have, of course, any kind of help during this experience. I didn't have anyone to help me with, the baby. And when I say help, like, I didn't have the additional help, like, my mom or my sister, let me watch her while you take a nap, or, would you like, for me to bring you something over to eat? I didn't have, those additional experiences that I would have liked to have, but I didn't have that. I didn't have, the physical help. I would really say that, since I didn't, of course, have the help, I know that COVID did, of course, contribute a lot to my PPD. I knew that I wanted to stay safe. I wanted to keep my baby safe. I wanted to, of course, do everything that, the CDC was recommended. And, especially with my sister, working in the front lines, I think what also, contributed a little bit to my PPD too, was just seeing her working the front lines, and then seeing also everything that she endured, the patients that she lost due to COVID. Um, and then, also have to go home and maintain a somewhat normal life. I knew that then too, COVID had changed, of course, many lives, and things would never be the same forever.
So do you feel like going through PPD has helped you with becoming a better emotional support system for your children?
I believe it's helped me tremendously. And when I say tremendously, like tremendously, like I allow my kids to really feel how they feel and speak about it.
Right.
And I want all my kids to be able to be comfortable with telling me exactly how they feel, whatever that looks like. So that can be, you know what, Mom, for example, I'll give you an example. So I asked my son, I said, hey, can you pick up your brother from school this day? You know, of course, because he's off due to the break. He's in college. And he don't go back till Monday. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know, can you pick him up? And he said, well, Mom, he said, I have this planned. And I'm going to go meet up with my friends, and we're going thrift shopping, and we are going to go have lunch. He said, so I won't be able to pick him up. And I was just so proud of him for telling me his truth.
Right.
And for telling me, you know what, Mom, like I have this going on and I'm not going to be able to do that. So I was so glad that he was not going to please me and tell me what I wanted to hear. He was actually going to live his truth and do for himself. So I would really say since then, I know that I have become a better parent, a better mother, a better partner, because I have allowed them to really, really express how they feel. Like I said, whatever that looks like. And don't be afraid to disappoint me, because that's, again, these situations that you're going to go through are going to be your situation, but that is going to be the only way that you're going to be able to learn. And I can't,
the type of person you come out to be.
Yeah. And I can't live and learn for you. You are going to have to experience that on your own. So I really encourage, you know, both my boys, of course, the baby too, she expresses herself, but not so much as the older two, but even, you know, my middle child, I, you know, encourage him to express exactly how he feels, whatever that looks like. Because, you know, one day he did make a valid point, and he told me, he said, Mom, he said, adults are not always right. And he's absolutely right. So I believe by allowing them to express how they feel now will only set them up for success later.
Right.
Yes, respectfully. Yes, yes. Will only set them up for success later, because not only will they know exactly how they're feeling when they get older, but they'll also know how to communicate it, and communicate it effectively. And like you said, respectfully. So yes, I would really say that, you know, of course, I know in life we go through many situations. Sometimes we don't know why we go through them at that time. Then later on in life, a lot of the situations that we go through, it kind of just puts everything into perspective. And, you know, without this situation, I wouldn't be the parent that I am now. And I wouldn't be so much more open-minded to their feelings. So I am forever grateful for, you know, going through this, but also being able to cope through it and navigate through it and seek the help that, you know, of course, I truly deserve, and everyone else does as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I feel like it's very important to teach your children and allow them to be expressive, right? Just because they express themselves does not mean that they're being disrespectful. It doesn't mean that they are going against what you are saying, but it is teaching them how to 100% be themselves. I think that's one of my biggest fears, because my daughter is a lot like me in regards to, we're very nonchalant. We aren't very emotional people, right? Like in an emergency, we can probably lead the pack, right? Like, I mean, it's an emergency, follow us, we got it. My son, however, he's very emotional. He's very enthralled with what's going on in the world. Like, things really bother him emotionally. So we have conversations all of the time about things that he you know, that he asks me about. I don't necessarily sugarcoat it, or I don't tell him, hey, don't worry about that, or because I said so. Like, I explain to him like what it is that we're seeing, or what somebody has done, you know, because one thing, you know, there's social media out there, right? So they do see things on TikTok, or they may see, you know, something, and I don't ever want to not explain something to him, or have him feeling like what he is seeing is the only thing that can be done, or is the only action to or reaction to a situation, or, you know, those kind of things. So I think that's very important. And sometimes we just learn late in life, right? Like, you know, we've gone through all of these things, but now we understand how important it is to be able to say, you know what, mom, I have this, you know, I'm already doing this and I'm already going here. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do it. And then for you to respectfully say, you know what, that's perfectly fine. You know, we'll make other arrangements, right? And that, I think, is a form of respect, right? And I think that it's going to help him understand that that is the treatment that he should get from everyone, right? When there's something that he's looking for or looking towards doing, he should get that same kind of consideration and respect from those that, you know, are around him. And that's, there's nothing wrong with that. We have to help our children set the expectation of how others treat them, you know?
For sure. It's all about setting boundaries.
Right. You know, and I think that unfortunately, again, us going through things is just the way that it has to happen until we are all at the place where we can, you know, have that healthy dynamic, starting off, you know, at the very beginning of life. Before we jump into talking about what causes and what contributes to PPD, I want to take a minute to make sure that our listeners know about all of the information, again, that's in the show notes. I have linked the articles, all of the sources are in the show notes. And I really feel like if you feel like you are exhibiting any of these symptoms, it's always a good idea to be safer than sorry, just because some of the side effects can really be life or death, right? And I also want to talk about self-care. It's super important, and I want people to really contemplate on what self-care is. Yes, it can be, you know, the physical, going to get my hair done, going to get my nails done, you know, pedicures, those kind of things. But self-care is really deeper than that. That could be quiet time, being able to process thoughts and emotion, healthy conversation with a close friend, praying, meditating, exercising, essentially things that feed your mind, right? That pour into you mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Going to the doctor, making sure you're going to the dentist, you know, making sure that you are in good health. Those things are true self-care, because if you are not well mentally or physically, it's hard for you to process, to rationalize, to be able to take care of someone else. So, you know, just kind of wanted to put that out there again. All the information is in the show notes. We really appreciate and hope that this helps someone seek the help that they need, or even just start their self-care journey to where they are really being intentional about the things that they pay attention to, the people that they talk to, the things they do in their downtime, just being intentional about really taking care of yourself and taking the time to know that it is okay to take care of yourself.
I agree with you. Self-care can be, you know, of course, opening up that book and, you know, reading, you know, taking that walk or taking that nap that you truly, truly deserve. Right, so give yourself grace. Yes, yes. Take the time to yourself and just reconnect.
There are levels of female hormones, which are estrogen and progesterone, that are the highest when you're pregnant, right? So in the first 24 hours of childbirth, they should drop quickly, like back to normal. But for some women, it does not. And so having these elevated levels can lead to PPD. Other feelings that may contribute to postpartum depression can be being tired after labor, tired from a lack of sleep or broken sleep, right? Like I know when I had my son, he would wake up every 4 hours. And because he would wake up every 4 hours, I didn't get to sleep with dad. Like I slept in a spare bedroom with the baby because I knew dad had to go to work. So I was being considerate, saying, okay, I can get up every 4 hours, do this feeding schedule, right? Like I don't want to being overwhelmed with a new baby, doubts about their ability to be a good mother, stress from changes in work and home routines, and unrealistic need to be a perfect mom, grief about loss of who they were before having the baby, being less attractive, or a lack of free time. And you know what? I feel like a lot of us deal with those things, like especially the last.
All those.
Oh my gosh, especially the last three. Like, I'm no longer who I was
Yes,
prior to this
for
child.
sure.
You know, bodies don't always snatch back. So feeling less attractive, you know, and then a lack of free time. I mean, I have no free time. Like, this baby is literally glued to my hip, like to the point where when I even had my daughter, and you know, when you have your second child, you kind of, well, for me, I kind of lightened up on practices, right? Like,
Yes,
so
same here.
I was a little bit helicopter over her because, you know, like, I don't want, you know, nothing to happen to her. With my son, I was kind of a little more like, hey, you know, you'll live. I know you'll make it. But it's to the point where I really didn't have any free time. Like, she would literally go into the bathroom with me when I would go take a shower. I would have her in her little bouncy chair. However, she was like literally right there. Everywhere I was, she was. Like, I did not feel like I could allow her to be in her playpen for 10 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, without my supervision, it was just to the point where I didn't really have any free time. And it was almost even harder. Like, I love the fact that my mom kept her because the attachment to her, I do not know that I would have been able to do daycare with her. I just feel like that would have been hard for me to do in the beginning. You know, I started to kind of, after the first time away from her, I kind of started to be like, okay, you know, things are going to be okay. But you know, these things are already tough enough, right? So to put that on top of, you know, just every other stress that we may be dealing with, or the other stressors that we may be dealing with, I can understand how it can be easy to develop. I just feel like for a lot of us, we probably don't put enough like into it to let it overcome us. For myself, I don't really put a lot of kind of like stock into issues. Like, I overcome things quickly. You know, like if something doesn't happen the way that I anticipated it happening, there's another way. There's like always another way. Like, I can always find another way. And so I feel like I don't dwell on things for very long. It's probably like festering somewhere down inside of me, and like, you know, like hopefully it doesn't all, you know, like blow up, but I just overcome.
Right.
But for some, it's not that easy, right? Like, it's not that easy for them to overcome. You know, even doing this research, it blew my mind to find out like how some women are just more at risk for PPD. So I'm going to read this list. It's literally like everybody. I feel like, I mean, it just could be anyone. You may be more at risk of PPD if you have a personal history of depression or bipolar disorder, okay? Have a family history of depression or bipolar disorder. If you do not have support from family and friends, if you were depressed during pregnancy, if you had problems with a previous pregnancy or birth, if you have relationship or money problems. Like, who don't have it? Who don't have those? Like, I mean,
especially nowadays.
I know, right? Like, so I mean, like, it blew my mind to read this list. Like, if you're younger than 20, okay, I had my daughter at 20. Like, I mean, literally a lot of these, I can't, you know, have alcoholism, use illegal drugs, or have some other problem with drugs, have a baby with special needs, if you have difficulty breastfeeding, or had an unplanned or unwanted pregnancy. Yeah. Both of my pregnancies was unplanned. I'm knocking off, I don't know how many of these on this list. No, I just am
yes.
So.
And I cannot express to you, yes, like a lot of that does play a part in postpartum. So, you know, my baby was born with clubfoot too. So not only was I dealing with all that in the mix, like with my, you know, of course, having a baby during COVID, postpartum, my partner could not go to the doctor's appointments because at that time they were only allowing one person to be in there. But my daughter was born with clubfoot. So at 2 weeks, she had to get casted. So I'm sorry, for those who don't know what clubfoot is, it's where the feet are born inward. And in order to straighten that out, the first 2 weeks of their birth, you have to get them casted. And then shortly after they're casted, as long as their feet, of course, develop correctly, then they'll just go into a brace and bar until they're 4 years old. And so I was going to those appointments by myself while dealing with postpartum. And it just, of course, it blew my mind because I, once again, did not have the support that I needed during this time at these appointments, because I had no idea what clubfoot was. I had no idea what I was going to be going through, what my baby was going to be going through. And I didn't have, of course, that additional support in the room with me other than the doctors. I would really say that, first, for the moms who are out there struggling, especially with, disorders when it comes to their children, I really, really, recommend for you to have that special friend go with you, or have your mom or whomever, go with you, so that, you can definitely get the support that you need. Because I know it can be, difficult going to those appointments by yourself and just having to care for the child, but also, receiving whatever news that, you might have to be, receiving because of the diagnosis. So yeah, it's just, it's a lot. I would say that, of course, on top of breastfeeding, you have to pump, in order to keep your breast milk supply up. And if I would say the first couple of weeks, it's very, very difficult for you to get that supply up. And your baby is constantly crying on your boob because she's hungry or he's hungry. And so I was dealing with that too. And I'm like, oh my goodness, at this point, I'm crying with you because I don't know what you're crying for. And so, not only are you breastfeeding or feeding the child, but shortly after that, you have to pump because you have to build your supply up. So it's just, it's a lot that I don't know that, of course, people actually take the time to understand, when becoming a, mother, a new mother, or a again mother, what they actually go through during the process and what actually happens during the baby's birth, but also after, because the body changes.
It's important. And, I want to commend all of the women that have been able to seek that help, that have reached out, felt comfortable enough to get the help that they need, because that is a really big step, right? Like, it's not always comfortable to do. It's not always accepted. Awareness is going to be the key, right? Like, I feel like being aware of what's going on, elevating acceptance, right? Like, if people are more aware of the things that us women go through, they'll accept it more. More women will feel comfortable with confiding in people and getting the help that they need. It's one of those things that we have to really stand behind each other on and support each other in, just because the effects of not doing it, can literally be life and death. That's just not the solution and should never be the solution. So if you, have the opportunity to share this episode, to even, do a little research and just share this information with someone that has just had a new baby. Hopefully there's no, offense taken in sharing this information. However, it's just imperative that we help, our sisters, our mothers, our friends, co-workers. If we notice things, help them to find a solution. And again, all of this information is going to be provided in the show notes, the resources, the sources from all of the information that I've used. If you feel like you are suffering, please get in contact with your doctor. It could be OBGYN, pediatrician, your therapist, if so. If you have a midwife that's helping you kind of through your pregnancy, those people are going to be able to point you in the right direction so that you can get the help that you need so that you can be healthy. Right? Like, that's the overall goal, is being healthy so that you can take care of your new baby and take care of your family and take care of yourself. Christina, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I really appreciate it. I think that you have really done something amazing here. And I'm just grateful that you were open enough to share your story with us. do you kind of have any additional words for anyone listening?
Yes, I would like to say to all the mothers that might be experiencing PPD or that are experiencing PPD, please, I urge you to speak with someone. And rather that be your doctor, rather that be a friend, your partner, a relative, just speak with someone in regards to what you are experiencing, because you are not alone. You truly are not. Like, you have no idea how many other people are going through the same thing that you're going through. So please seek the help so that you can, navigate through this beautiful life, because there's so much more than what you are experiencing currently. So, yes.
Well, thank you all for listening to The Elephant in the Room. And until next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of If Anything, I'm Everything. If you enjoyed listening to today's episode, please don't forget to like, share, and follow. You can also find this podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at I'm Everything Podcast. All links are provided in the show notes, along with any pertinent information regarding to the episode. Thanks again for joining the conversation.